Hello and welcome to Jamie Riddler Studios. I am Jamie and I'm so excited to share with you today a little bit of the excitement I'm feeling about spring. During this time is when I notice my studio expands out into the garden and I get to express and fill my creative heart in our little backyard space. And recently I had an idea which I am loving so much that combines two things I love that I think you might love too, which is the garden and journaling. So today I'm going to share with you a little bit about my garden journal, and I hope it inspires you to keep one too. There were several things that inspired me to create a garden journal. One is, and you'll know this if you've ever visited with me in my Garden with Jamie video series, is I always forget what all the plants are. But what I always remember is the stories behind them. And I thought a gardening journal would be the perfect way to both keep a record of what things are and where I planted them, and also a little bit of the story behind them. I'm going to make a cover, but I haven't done that yet. I haven't found just the right thing that I wanted to be on the front. The first thing I did was write the date in our garden, and I did a little outline of what I remember is in the garden. And it's funny because I did make a tour around the garden video today, and there was so much that I couldn't remember. So I'm hoping that as I look at here, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw the spiderwort and the astilbe and the hosta and the white bleeding heart and the obedient plant. The mountain phlox, maybe that's what's coming back. I hope so. And then look, I wrote, I really don't remember what's going on here, which seems to be always what I forget. So I put that all around here, including what I planted, plus the wonderful things that I've ordered for this year. And I think they're coming this week. And I've made a little plan for where they might go. And I'm so excited to have that in here. So here, this totally cracks me up. Plants I tried that didn't grow. And this was actually really worthwhile doing, because when I looked at these, white peony, white gladiolus, you can tell I really love a white garden, is every one of these I bought in a hardware store or a grocery store. And that made me realize I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just not going to invest. I'm going to find a store that I really like online, or a garden center that I really like, and I'm going to trust that. And then here I started to keep our garden history. And there are so many plants that I have planted that are no longer with us, from this honeysuckle to this, I don't even remember really having this aquilegia. I knew from the beginning that I really wanted a white garden. And so these colors sort of surprised me. I do know that I allowed in some blue and some pink, which is so funny because it's such a Jamie color story. And I also wrote then a little bit of story about them. Like they call these double columbines winkies, and I thought that was so cute. So I put these winkies are one of the first things that I ever put in the garden, and I put them in front of the deck by the stairs. The whirling butterflies, if I ever see this again, I will get it and put it in the garden. I loved it so very much. They're such delicate flowers, and they move in the wind, and that's what makes them feel like butterflies. One of the first things I got was this Artemisia. Look, I love Artemisia. And I wrote about how we always had this at home. And I used to go outside in the morning to pick raspberries from the bush, and I would rub my bare feet gently across the top of the Artemisia because it was so soft. And I loved doing that here too. And it lasted quite a while, but it hasn't come back. More columbines. Look at all this color. At the time, there was very little in the garden center that was white, and I was so frustrated. And I put these lupins in, and my sister Susie said, no, you can't put those in. They take over. They take over. So I trusted her and took them out almost immediately. This common yarrow, I think that's still in the garden, though I always think it's phlox. I think I get these two mixed up. This is one of the very first drawings I ever did in the garden. One of the first thing I planted was these raspberry bushes. We finally took them out. What a chore. They are so strong. But we found we were sharing them with more animals than getting any ourselves. And so I thought I'll have more peonies instead. But it's fun to go back over these and see what my vision was for the garden. Look at all the planning I was doing, what I was thinking out, how much it would cost. This is my clematis, which I've moved, and the clematis has become for me an emblem of growing my roots, because the first year that I planted it, it had no blooms whatsoever. And my mom told me not to worry. This was the year it was planting its roots, and we would see flowers in the future, and we did. So many, in fact, that we called it the Giant's Bouquet. And that's the story I've written around here. It's become really a great reminder to me that sometimes when I'm doing a project, when I'm creating something, to allow that there will be a time when you will not see growth, when you are just planting your roots, and then that the blossoms will come later. The tree peony was one of the very first things I bought. Mine does not look like this whatsoever. And the first year I planted, it was beautiful and spare, and I got one bloom. And if you watch the In the Garden with Jamie video, you'll see just how many are promising to show up this year. This little picea tree, it's so big here. When I bought it, it was just a little boo, and it was a gift from my very, very first coaching client. He was a nature lover, and he loved trees, and he gave me a bonus for being such a great coach, and I went out and bought a tree to put in my garden. I love having this picture of this iris because I am wildly in love with the foliage, and it's a good thing because that's all that ever shows up every year. I have never once had a bloom from these. Maybe this year will be different. I still have some of this artemisia in my garden. Some of this orchid frost shows up here and there. This one's funny. I'm so glad I could see these Virginia bluebells. They disappeared for a couple years, and then when they showed up, I didn't know if they were mine, if they were a weed, if they were from the back neighbor's garden. I had no idea. So when I see this, I'm like, oh, I planted that. My hellebore, it has been through several brutal winters. I am not sure whether it's coming back this year. My Siberian irises. This year, one of my big challenges in the garden is I am going to divide these, and I have never, ever done them before. I love this flower. I love the beauty of it, the delicacy of it, especially when it shows up. It shows up kind of like a little shadow in the foliage, and then you have a flower. And I'm wildly in love with the strong, straight, tall foliage. My peonies, you'll see these this summer as they bloom. I don't think I have any Aquilegias left in my garden, and this makes me really sad. I'm wildly in love with these white ones. I have several pictures of them, and I hope to add more to my garden. So you can see this is just the history of my garden. There you can see I started to find some white. And I can see the things that made it, the things that didn't. Last year I planted this delicate, beautiful mountain phlox, and it had a really, really hard time. I hope it's going to come back this year. This geranium, what's it called? I won't be able to pronounce this very well. Cantabrigiens. This is a plant that I got from Justin's mother, straight out of her garden. We carried it with us in a plastic bag on the bus home from Peterborough and put it in our garden, and it has thrived. I have taken little pieces and planted in places around my garden where things have a hard time. This is actually not my garden, and when I look at this, right away I see the color story, and I know it's my mom's. One year, my mom was able to get a bit of a garden patch at her building, and for Mother's Day, we brought all of these plants, and we sat outside and planted. These are my mom's pinks and corals, and she loved them so very much. I was so glad to have that experience with her, and heartbroken. And people stole right out of her garden. This Lavatera which was so beautiful, was one of the first things to go. I cannot imagine that people would do that, and I especially can't imagine that people would do that at a seniors building. It just broke my heart, and my mom's too. Then here we go, getting ready for this year. Now you see my color stories. I bought these tulips, which are now growing. If you go to my In the Garden with Jamie video, you'll see it. Yes, I think I have a couple just about to show up. And these beautiful narcissus, I didn't think they were coming. And it really broke my heart because I have planted them under my lilac tree in memory of when I was a little girl and my mom planted daffodils underneath the trees in our backyard in Montreal. I felt like it was the woods and they were fairy treasures. And just this week, I've seen them start to sprout. So I'm so excited about that. These are some of the things that I have ordered. A big cafe au lait dinner plate dahlia, this beautiful Star of Billion. As soon as I heard the name Star of Billion, I was like, of course, I have to get that. Here's the hellebore that I'm gonna try in the backyard. This is a big stretch for me. I don't generally buy roses, and this was the biggest investment, but look, they almost look like peonies in their beautiful fullness. A white Astilbe, another mock orange, and these beautiful Metallicum Nipponicum. So these are some of the things that'll be arriving shortly. I no doubt will do an unboxing and I'll share with you how they grow in my garden.
So you can see that I have been having so much fun with my garden journal, that it is filled with memories and plans and stories. And I also wanted to mention that when I put the tags in for each of the plants, I also make sure that I write beside it the care for that kind of a plant, how much water it needs, whether it needs sunshine or shade. So I also have a practical reference here as well as a whole lot of memories. I hope that this inspires you to start your own garden journal, or maybe even your own garden. I still consider myself a really novice gardener, but this has been an art form that I have found really meaningful and nourishing. I still remember when we moved into this house and our backyard was a mess. It was honestly a patch of dirt, and as you dug through that dirt, instead of finding like earthworms and stuff like that, we found nails and broken tiles and even an abandoned door. So I just feel so proud to have cleaned that up and to have nourished that soil. And in return, I know that it is nourishing my heart. So take a chance and plant something. You never know what magic you might start. Thanks so much for joining me in the studio. I am Jamie. I hope you'll come and visit me over at openthedoor.ca at Jamie Ridler Studios, where creativity comes to life.